Welcome, everybody, to All Things Jiu-Jitsu. What's going on? Introducing right now the host, the man of the hour, Papa John, Professor Papa John Gorman. And I'm Craig Anthony. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
That crowd disappeared. We used to have a crowd that would...
We forgot. Due to social distancing issues,
it took a while for the communication to take place.
It does sometimes.
Well, good. How are you this morning? How was your week?
Week has been great. Looking forward to a huge weekend ahead. Do some good training. But yeah, we've got Naga coming up in Austin, Texas this weekend.
Well, we'll talk about some of that in a little bit. I want to ask you, though, one of the things that I'm seeing or hearing is the response. I don't know what you're hearing, but I'm hearing a little bit of a response from people I know who didn't know we were doing this show, for example, this podcast. And it's a good response. I don't know why, but it's a good response.
The power of social media?
Possibly.
The easy power of social media. No longer is it the thing you read in the newspaper, but it's something that's instantaneous, and it makes it really nice and wonderful for the little guy to get viewed. Of course, we have all our social media pages.
That has nothing to do with you and I being little guys.
Yeah.
So anyway.
I've never been called a little guy before. No, real quick, we're going to tell you about Dolomer Sports Services, our wonderful sponsor, Dolomer. Right now, they are focusing on home training. So if you need to get yourself some new mats for wrestling, jiu-jitsu, any type of good sports surface you want to put inside your home for your living room, if you want to put it in your garage, go to Dolomer.com right now and check out all the sizing, everything you're going to need for all your home training right at Dolomer.com. We'll put the link in the description below.
One quick thought about Dolomer real quick is that they're not just concentrating on home. They're still a majority producer for institutions.
Correct.
But that is becoming a huge part of their business because of the pandemic. Anyway.
All right.
Well, let's see. What are we going to do? I think we'll talk. We need to look at a little bit today of what's going on first in the jiu-jitsu world. And let's really, I think we want to congratulate Michelle Watterson.
The karate hottie.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yes. She's awesome. I love watching her fight.
She just got her brown belt by her coach and professor. I think it's well deserved. She certainly is demonstrating her ability to control her opponent on the ground. And everything I would look for in a brown belt, she's exhibited. And so congratulations, well earned.
Most certainly. Congratulations.
And why do you call her the Korean hottie?
The karate hottie. That's been her nickname.
Karate hottie, I'm sorry.
That was her nickname since her Bellator days or her early fighting days, has always been the karate hottie. Because she was a karate girl before she got into full-on MMA.
Well, now, I think we ought to, it would be remiss if we didn't really talk about probably one of my favorite MMA fighters, a guy who took wrestling, one of the great wrestlers of America who is went through to MMA. Really, I think took wrestling is everywhere it could go in MMA, and did a super job. He's now about to hang it up, and he had a great. He had a great send-off, we'll call it, actually an appropriate one, I guess. And he was, he fought a young man that I happen to know, Neiman Gracie. He was submitted, Neiman submitted him with a heel hook and a very, a match that just shows the passing of the torch. And I'm sad to see him go, but man, he has been something to watch. And I think he's happy with what he's done and wants to move on to other things now.
Well, you get a huge thing with Fitch. The guy's been around. He's fought in every major organization from the UFC, World Series of Fighting, now Bellator and all these. And he's had some massive, massive matches over the years. Everybody from Jake Shields, Josh Berkman, Damian Maia fights. man, he's fought the who's who in his
Yes, he
career,
has.
and he's always been one of those really solid gatekeeper types of fighters and stuff. So huge respect to John Fitch. We of course wish you the very, very best in your retirement. We thank you for all the great fights that you gave us over all the years.
Absolutely.
And
He
Neiman
has been fun to watch. Neiman, young man coming along. I've known him since he was a kid.
Neiman's a stud. He's a stud.
Well, he is. It's a family tradition that he has to do something with regard to grappling in that family.
It's a blessing and a curse when you were a Gracie. That's for sure.
We've heard that from a number of Gracies. They don't really have choice in their career, and I think we were just watching an interview Henner the other day. Someone asked him how long he had been in jiu-jitsu or when did he decide that he wanted to do it, and he said, "Really, in our family, you don't have any choice in the matter." Pretty standard. Hey, another point though, real quick, is a fight that just happened this weekend. That I don't want to say it's a passing of the guard kind of thing, but it's someone who I like in jiu-jitsu, Rafael Lovato Jr. Out of Oklahoma.
A legend.
Amazing guy. I've known him for 15 years. Excuse me. And, of course, he's coming back from some serious illness and problem that he's had to deal with. And still an amazing grappler, amazing jiu-jitsu guy. He's come back into tournaments and fights. And he just this weekend he had a fight, and the interesting thing was it was with Tex Johnson, and Rafael Tex just simply tied up. It looked like a little aggression in the beginning by Tex, but they didn't really do anything the whole fight. Excuse me, it was a control. Did you see that fight, by the way?
I actually got to see the replay. I watched little clips of the replay and stuff, so I didn't get to totally do a breakdown analysis on the whole fight. I've been watching so many different fights.
There's not a lot to break down, sadly.
Fight to Win 151 was the event. Fight to Win's been putting on some fantastic events. Huge super fights. There's a big one coming up this weekend, and actually this weekend's
Flow Grappling.
I believe so. Yes. And I'm going to give a big shout out real quick to Garrett Andrews, who's one of the coaches over at Combat Concepts in Sherwood, Arkansas, who is one of our friends. He's actually competing this weekend at Fight to Win. So good luck to Garrett and in your fight coming up.
What's his weight?
He's 215.
Yeah.
220.
Good sized boy.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, that of course that fight, no one. It went really. It was like a draw almost. Had to go to a decision by the referee, and Lovato was on top the whole fight. In the no, I can't remember now. Yeah, he was on top pretty much the whole time, but a decision went to Tex Johnson by the referee. So, and it was a unanimous decision. So.
Correct. For a lot of folks that don't fully understand the rule set for Fight to Win, there's a time limit, and at the time limit, the decision is actually made by there are 3 referees, technically judges, but they're all watching, and then they actually will make their decision on who was the more aggressive and all that. So it was a unanimous decision, so the 3 of 3.
Well, believe, yeah. It was a fair decision. I mean, I can see the decision. A little unfortunate, but because I would have supported, I would like to have seen Lovato win it, but then he's just a favorite of mine. Anyway, and moving on, the other thing I think we can talk about. Well, let's talk about the UFC coming up. This fight. I think the card it will be Anderson Silva. It's not coming up now.
This is the Halloween. This is the Halloween fight, actually.
I want to jump, to the Halloween fight. That's what I want to talk about. I'm going to be watching that because the card includes someone I like to watch, and that's Bryce Mitchell. But we'll come to him in a minute. Anderson and Silva versus Uriah Hall, and that promises to be somewhat of the same style of, let's say, Could be a transition for the UFC. Could be a type of passing of the torch. Maybe not. But I'll never underestimate Anderson Silva. A lot of people think he's finished, but he's not.
Well, what we're about to see, this is Anderson Silva's official retirement fight. I think it's a great choice. Uriah Hall stylistically matches up with him very, very well. Both phenomenal strikers, both tall, very long legs, great kicks. I think it's going to be a really, really interesting fight. Don't expect it to go to the ground. I think these guys are going to be firing off some shots from left field, and it's going to look good.
You know, again, a lot of these reminiscences, when I talk about the past.
Memory.
Yes. Well, anyway, I happen to have been in, I met Anderson Silva in Brazil, training at, not a Recife, but that's in Recreio, part south of Baja, in Rio. And he was probably one of the nicest guys, friendliest guys, a lot of fun to train with. His teacher for jiu-jitsu at the time was Silvio Bering. You know who Silvio is?
Yes,
Silvio's
sir.
an old friend of mine. Or an
Red
acquaintance.
belt.
Yeah, well, red and white.
Red and white.
Yeah, red and white. He's been to Washington as my guest. I've been to his home a few times. Interesting guy. His father is also a grandmaster, by the way. But let me see. Going back to this, anyway, I enjoyed meeting Anderson. Anderson's an amazing talent. But moving on, and the fight that I'm particularly interested in is way down the card. Just been added, apparently. Just found out about it. I didn't know about it. But Andre Fili from Hawaii is going to be taking on one of my favorite young fighters, Bryce Mitchell. And Bryce is an amazing young man, I think. His jiu-jitsu is amazing. His stand-up is amazing for such a small guy. And some of his, it's just, I'm familiar with the people who've trained him and where he's training, and I am very enthused. He's demonstrated, I think, that capacity that he can really get good training without going to some of the big places, as you pointed out to me earlier, and you might want to comment on that.
Yeah. I think right now, Bryce Mitchell, this is going to be one of the biggest fights of Bryce Mitchell's career.
No question.
Andre Fili has a huge record. He's been in the UFC for quite a few years. He's got the experience. He's got explosiveness. He's got great hands. This is Bryce Mitchell's biggest test to date. If Bryce Mitchell can pull this one off, I see Bryce Mitchell being a top 10 minimum, top 10, possibly even a top 5 fighter coming up ready to take on a title fight. Bryce has proven, and he's been extremely proud to be from Arkansas. We hear him in his post-fight press conferences and with Joe Rogan talking about, people say, well, if you're from Arkansas, you ain't shit. And that's exactly what he says. And you know what? He's proven it. You don't have to necessarily be a fighter that travels to Florida. You don't have to go to ATA. You don't have to go to American Top Team. You don't have to go to these big schools necessarily to make it. You have to have drive. You have to have good coaching. You have to have good management. Now, one of his coaches that he's come up underneath, which would be, now I'm totally drawing a blank. Right now he's fighting under Westside MMA with Rolly Delgado and Willie McLaughlin. Willie, who's who I'm thinking about. Willie has done a phenomenal job with multiple fighters over the years about ensuring that young fighters such as Bryce, they don't go pro too quickly.
Yeah. Well, Willie was a blue belt when I was a blue belt. We trained together at the same academy where I began. And in fact, one of the coaches, another blue belt, Rolly Delgado, was a blue belt at the time too, who's now coaching him, and Matt
Hamilton.
Matt Hamilton then was training all of us at that time. And he runs Westside. So it's going to be interesting from my perspective. So yes, we've got a little bit of regionalism showing, a little bit of favoritism. Yeah. We'd like to see it, but I'll tell you something. Andre Fili is one great fighter. And look at the camp he comes from.
Yep.
This is not going to be a walk in the park for Bryce Mitchell. So Bryce is going to have, I think, a war on his hands. But after watching him against the black belt from Boston,
Yeah.
I am so excited that he won my heart.
Are we
then.
going to see any twister attempts in this fight?
Yeah, thank three or four in one night.
Exactly.
Attempts. It was absolutely unbelievable.
That's fantastic. Right on. Well, we're going to keep the show rolling on. We're going to talk about one of the big topics for the day Papa John wanted to talk about. And we're going to want to do this in little segments and stuff in future shows where for Jiu-Jitsu, individual belts. And today, starting from the beginning, as we all do, we're going to talk about white belts. Papa John's got a bunch of stuff he wants to talk about, so I'm going to hand it over to you, John. Papa John, here you go.
I don't have anything to say.
Nothing. Zero.
Nothing about white belts. No.
He's speechless for the first time in history.
Well, we're all waiting on someone else to become speechless, Craig. We're gonna. By the way, my name for Craig is. I've been calling him Craigan, and if you hear me occasionally refer to him that way, bear with us. I don't know why. I just started calling him Craigan, and
Happens.
It's almost like a prehistoric animal of some kind, huh? Craigan.
From the depths of the sea.
No, the swamp.
The swamps, thanks.
Craigan.
The swamps of Arkansas.
Well, anyway, we are going to talk about, look at white belts. You had a question about white belts?
So to start off with white belts, from the very beginning, when a new student steps into a gym and they are a white belt, what should they expect at the beginning of this journey?
Well, it's actually not what they should expect. I'm going to change it a little bit. It's what the instructor should expect out of him. But let's take the student's perspective. The student's perspective is probably, at first is a little fear, a little trepidation, or a little nervousness, and that sort of thing. But when he gets out, if it's been introduced properly to him and he's had a little bit of fun with rolling a little bit and sees, wow, I like this, it's wrestling around, it rekindles the fire from when he was younger and a kid, generally, if he's not already a kid, starts having fun. My predilection is to make sure they have fun. That's really a goal. And I can do that later in the class. Usually it's in the rolling portion by managing who they roll with. But back to a white belt. A white belt has zero idea of what to expect. So I'm not sure. When I go back to when I was a white belt, what I wanted after I got exposed to it, I wanted a chance to get out, keep playing. I rekindled that fire. I was playing out on the mat, and I was an old man. So we want to give that to them. But they come in, and after a little bit of exposure, you want to motivate them a little bit, and you want to kind of reward their enthusiasm and maintain it. And part of that requires them progressing. All right. But to progress, they really have to understand a couple of fundamentals first that I want. What I want out of white belts is for them to come to understand at some point within the first 6 months to a year that it's a form of, the fighting is really positional fighting. Learning that, not submission fighting. That comes later. You can't submit someone until you got the right position.
Position before submission. Correct.
And that's it. The term we use was always position before submission. And that's the way I learned it. And it took me longer than most people to learn it, I think. But that's what we look for. Now, they come in, and based on other martial arts and what somebody will tell them about martial arts and whatever, it's a different expectation ultimately. They expect a progression of sorts, some form of testing, some form of, or how long is it going to take me to get my black belt or something like that. Well, in point of fact, the road to the black belt is a long time. White belts when they start, have to learn that concept first, positional fighting. Okay. So then they have a little fun. The hardest thing to learn for a white belt is the most fundamental thing you have to learn is passing the guard. Single hardest thing, in my opinion, to teach, not to teach so much but to learn and get it ingrained in your thought process, passing the guard. Because if you the guard itself, the position of the guard is totally neutral. So if you pass it, that means you are in a superior position to your opponent. And if you are, you're starting to climb that hierarchy of position, which we'll talk about another night. But that expectation of white belts is they get all of the world of martial arts mixed up. All right, what do I have to do? Give me a list specifically of what I have to do. It's not that simple. It's actually, for my requirement is I want to see them develop a fluidity out there on the mat. As a white belt, I don't expect them to be moving like purple belts, but developing transitions, being able to pass, being able to do things in competition a little bit. And by competition, I'm talking about within with their contemporaries, the people they're training with. But they need a few submissions. They need they need to understand how to do an armbar. They need to understand what a kimura is. They need to understand a couple of sweeps, a couple of transitions, and some chokes. And they need to understand the value of where they're at in the fight. Taking the back, for example.
So what kind of mentality would you recommend for a new student to have on day number one? What kind of open-mindedness, humbledness? Because you and I have both seen it, how many times we get a new young student in, and now they're 30 years old. They maybe have wrestled back in high school. We've seen them when they come walking into the gym, and it's the man's mentality, especially of, I don't want to be a bitch. I'm going to be tougher than I think I am. They don't know the science of fighting, but they think, well, I'm a tough guy. What kind of mentality should somebody really probably take upon themselves when they're a new student?
Well, it's a transitional mentality. We have to deal with them, and they have to deal with us. And I think there's a rhythm. If we could say anything, there's a rhythm we get them into for the training. That sort of co-ops, that attitude. When they get out on the mat and they're just wanting to fight, they're wanting to, or it's strength against strength and that sort of thing. The hardest thing to teach them is breathing properly, learning to relax, and being able to then pay attention to what the other person's doing, and at the same time be able to do what they need to do. All of this is counterintuitive, to be perfectly honest. Telling someone, relax while you're fighting, doesn't make sense to a new person. And of course, that's what we do. I think watching, I've got one particular student I just love to think back on. And, it's Ryan. We were in it was cold in the winter. He was training with us, and he got out just all big guy, tensed up. And man, he went balls to the wall in his first grappling session. Might even been in guard passing drill even. I can't remember now. But as he was doing it, within 3.5 to 5 minutes, he was totally exhausted. Before the night was over, he was dragging himself on the mat. And to watch where he's come from to where he's going to now. Now he's a blue belt, climbing, working hard, and he's got, I think,
2 stripes.
2 stripes, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and that's another thing we need to talk about probably is stripes. Are we doing okay on time?
You're good. Yeah.
Okay. Instructors have different expectations. You can't. This is a real interesting observation, I think, for students. Students want to know what is the instructor's intention. But sometimes they say, well, what does Jiu-Jitsu require? And that's what you've really got to learn. It's what the instructor is looking for. You might have gotten lucky, got an instructor that is someone who really watches you and thinks about your game and has goals for you, want to see how this fits into your life and all that. That's what we want to see. But sometimes they just see, some instructors, I've been this way before, where people, you're seen simply as an asset. White belts that's really where the money's at in jiu-jitsu, actually, white belts. But the truth is, when they get the first stripe, that's for me, that's an encouragement after they have shown that they are attending regular and that they're beginning to, they're taking what you say serious and they're trying to do it. That's all I require for the first stripe. You get 4 stripes and to between belt levels in our art. 4 stripes, and you are go to the next belt. Okay, so that being the case, the second stripe though is a little more demanding, still participation, but they start developing. That's not going to be good.
It's okay. We'll edit. Phone calls. Love it.
I got a phone call, folks.
This is the good stuff that
it's live.
Professor Gilson, we know you're watching. So this is your fun comedy. This is what you want, my friend.
No, it's not. Well, anyway, it's not until about let's say 6 months to 9 months in that I'm starting to really look for serious progress from a white belt. White belt's the greatest time at all to be in jiu-jitsu, I think.
Yeah, because nothing's expected of you, and you can
That's
be
right.
complete.
It's like being a second lieutenant in the Army.
You have to have fun. Number one, have fun with jiu-jitsu. If you don't love jiu-jitsu, if you're not having fun, why are you even here to begin with?
Absolutely.
If you've lost the passion and the fun and the love of the martial art, then you're just running in circles, and there's not really a point. But
well, the last I think point we can make is that you just can't expect an arbitrary set of guidelines. Some people incorporate time and X amount of technique. Some people, and I'm a combination of that. I like that. I want to see certain technique, but I don't have a specific list. I watch and see where he's progressing against other people. How's he doing against the other white belts? How's he doing against blue belts and purple belts? And what do they think of his rolling? And they all take notice of each other, and they're constantly evaluating each other. And that's what's interesting to me. So it's an instructor's decision. And I'm sorry, not really specific for everything, addressing it the way it should be. But I'm going to give stripes where I think a person is moving forward and progressing at the level I'd like to see them at. And that's a hard thing. I should share that. I'd like to be able to share that with the student and let him know. Often that's not possible. But we get criticized a lot. One of my favorite students of all time was a young man in Washington, D.C., and he was frustrated with me after a few months. He had done all kinds of karate, taekwondo, and other things, and he had seen progression regularly. And he sat down with me and said, Papa John, what do you expect from me? He was thinking only of getting his black belt. And I said, that's a great goal, but that's 10 years from now. It's just a life journey. And after you get that, then it's really like the first step. So the white belt time is a time to relax, to enjoy this, have fun, learn as much as you can, and give yourself a chance to learn it without pressure. Keep the pressure off you. And that's hard in our society today.
all righty. So continuing on, this weekend we wanted to talk a little bit about tournaments. Tournaments are coming up. Tournaments are slowly coming back. This weekend, Naga is having a tournament in Austin, Texas.
Well, you're going to be involved in that one.
I will be. I will be there.
Representative to the referee. Effort.
Yes, I will be refereeing. I got my assignments and stuff yesterday. It's going to be a good time. Now, what I want to ask, what we want to ask is, like, we understand that there is a major change in things happening right now nationwide, worldwide. please, please, please be very, very patient. Be patient with all of the promotions. We are allowing the competitors, everybody's got to wear masks. Of course, we're not going to wear masks when you're competing or when we're refereeing. However, all spectators, no matter what, got to have to wear a mask while you're inside the building. They're going to take your temperature at the front door. All the guidelines that you've been hearing about at every other event, they're going to be happening. However, we do get to finally compete. We are running on a smaller crew, so you're going to have referees running multiple mats, and it's going to be a little bit of a learning curve. So I just want everybody to just be patient with everybody as we are going to try to we're all getting through this together. You know, your frustrations are our frustrations, and everybody's trying to get back a sense of normality. So
IBJJF is getting underway, getting there, starting to gear up for tournaments too, slowly, carefully. It is, as you point out, you know, it's a careful exercise.
Yes.
And there's going to be a lot of people upset because of the way we're used to moving around in these tournaments. I was looking at Grappler's Quest and I'm sorry, not Grappler's Quest, Naga. Naga is separating the participation in the venue out between kids and adults.
Correct.
And that is going to be somewhat disruptive because it's always it just rolls right into the continuing on during the matches. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And I'm looking forward to hearing you next week.
Most certainly
how that went.
What we are doing, in case you're wondering, we're doing the kids and teens. We're doing basically 2 massive sessions of tournament. You're doing kids and teens in the morning and adults in the afternoon. And adult competitors are not allowed into the venue until the kids are completed and have left the building. And that is not necessarily NAGA's regulation or anybody. They have to go by state rules and rules of the venue. And so that's another thing we have to work around. That's why a lot of the states have not had tournaments just yet, because state-to-state laws or regulations for this whole pandemic are stating how many people are allowed in a venue and what rules you have to go by for social distancing and all that good stuff.
So tournaments are coming. Just be patient,
Yes.
and we'll work on it. I think a final area I want to talk about in just a minute is really related to our sponsors a little bit. Dahlemer Mats, everyone knows, or you should by now know that we're strong supporters of Dahlemer Mats and what they do for our sport and our martial art. In addition to that, though, we have one of the sponsors that we have is Rio de Janeiro Jiu-Jitsu Clubs. That happens to be a company in the United States that I own with 2 other gentlemen. And I want to mention what that's doing, what we're trying to do with that. And what we're trying to do with that is provide an association for individuals and people who say, hey, I want to open my own school. And how do I do it? What do I do? What do I do about rank? How is my rank certified? How do I legitimately promote my students and that sort of thing? What kind of curriculum should I be putting out? Should I be putting out a curriculum? And the answer to that, of course, is yes. But we want to help with that. How can I get certified as an instructor? That's one of the things we want to talk about, and we will be developing. And we're going to incorporate that into programs too. The other is what Craig is doing right now with Naga. As he's a referee, travels from time to time to different events. Well, we are offering a referee training. We'll be offering referee training too. One of my partners in our organization, Jilson Fernandez, is a very, very technical guy, sought after, and has run many different associations back in Brazil. And his standards are very, very high for referees. And incorporating what he's doing with what we're going to do, I think we're going to, be a good opportunity for school owners to develop their understanding of how tournaments work, how rules work, and how to generally prepare their students for the world of jiu-jitsu.
Well, On that note, we just want to make sure everybody, if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you reach on down there and you hit that subscribe button. Hit the little bell icon as well, so that way you know when the latest videos pop up for you. If you got any questions about us right now, you have that opportunity. You're watching us on YouTube, go down to the comment section right now. You can leave us questions, comments, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And we will be launching a new website very soon, which you'll be able to go to, and you can get very involved with us and read about Rio de Janeiro Jiu-Jitsu clubs and all types of good stuff. So make sure you stick around with us at All Things Jiu-Jitsu.
Thanks, everybody.
For All Things Jiu-Jitsu, Papa John Gorman, I'm Craig Anthony. We greatly appreciate you. Stay rolling, be safe, and we'll see you next time right here on All Things Jiu-Jitsu.
Hit the mat.